Hey everybody, and welcome to the Performance Gap Analysis presentation for EDUC 603. What we're going to do this week is take a look at the two first stages of the evolution of our course assignments and the client search. So the last couple of weeks you've spent trying to identify a client who was willing to work with you throughout the duration of our portfolio-based work. And a client is any group of people, more than five people who present with a performance problem that we are going to analyze for them through a very thorough front-end analysis process. And through this process, what we're going to do is clearly define their problem for them. And we're going to do this in a performance problem statement. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is later. The next thing we need to do is, once we have sort of defined the problem for the client and with the client, we're going to head out and we're going to confirm that the problem actually exists. And we're going to do this through a method called performance gap analysis. And what performance gap analysis aims to do is define the gap or the space or the discrepancy between the current state of operations or the present state of affairs and compare it to the future state of operations or the desired state of affairs. So typically a client will present with a problem, or you will be approached with a problem statement, which tells us that something isn't going well, something isn't going right in the present tense. Something about the current state is inadequate or lacking. And the client typically will define for you or with you what they would like to see improve, be better, or be different in the desired state of operations or in the future. The difference between the two is calculated as a delta, and we're going to work very hard in the next couple of weeks here to define that delta in very quantifiable terms. One of the things that's going to help us do that is by writing these very solid performance problem statements. And I really like this quote by Charles Kettering: "A well-stated problem is a problem half solved." And when you move forward as instructional designers and performance consultants, one of the most challenging jobs, or parts of our jobs, is helping clients to really articulate the problems that they are having. And many times, if you do this well, and often enough, you will discover that the problems that the client presents are really not problems at all, and or they have misidentified the problem. So we're going to help them state the problem very clearly. These are some samples of problem statements that students have presented in the past, and there's two elements of the formula for writing a problem statement. The first is the problem. In this one, staff do not close grant budgets in accordance with federal regulations. That in and of itself is not a problem unless it results in some sort of penalty or problem. So this statement is further elaborated to say that staff not closing grant budgets in accordance with federal regulations is resulting in a series of non-compliance fees. So now we have an individual performance of an employee that's resulting in an organizational outcome. Here's another example. Online gaming team members are losing many of their first-person shooter matches, resulting in elimination from competitive matches and loss of award money. So again, we have individual performance, the online gaming team member losing the matches, and how that impacts, or what the results of that, the consequence is on the organization. In this case, the online gaming community is eliminated from these competitive matches and they're losing out on money. Another example, staff members do not know how to use Microsoft Office 2007, resulting in a failure to meet acceptable quality levels as defined by the client. So again, you have just individual performance of these staff members and their lack of knowledge and skill around Microsoft Office 2007, which isn't necessarily a problem unless that translates to an organizational outcome, a negative organizational outcome. And in this case, it's failure to meet those defined metrics by the metrics defined by the client. So very simply, you're taking the desired performance, you're subtracting the current level of performance from it, and that discrepancy or that difference between the two is your performance gap. So the first thing you want to do is state the problem, quantify the impact. You're typically going to do that by incorporating some sort of resulting in clause in your problem statement. Be sure to identify what would be different, better, changed, or improved in the future state, in the desired state of performance, and you want to calculate the difference or the delta between the two. So, going back to our examples, if the problem statement is, staff do not close budgets in accordance with federal regulations resulting in non-compliance fees, and again there's two parts here. We have employee performance that's resulting in organizational impact. Our performance gap analysis is going to look something like this. Our actual state, or our present state, our current state, 0% of grants are closed. Open grants are closed. In the desired state, they want 300. So the difference or the delta here that we're targeting is 100% of those open grants. Another example might be looking back at our online gaming community. In the current state, 47% of matches are won. And in the desired state or the future state, the online gaming community would like to win 80%. So the delta or the difference between the two is a simple calculation. It's 33%. So again, you have your individual performance level, which is team member losing matches, which results in this larger organizational impact of losing award money. And one final example here, if you remember this problem statement, your performance gap analysis in this particular instance might look like 25% of staff knowing basic Microsoft Office functions in the current state, and in the future looking to 90% of staff knowing those functions. So simply the difference between the two is a delta of 65%. So when we look at phrasing this, it's really important that you don't imply a solution within your problem statement and within your performance gap analysis. So a performance problem statement would never say anything like, sales will increase with better training as a future state. You also want to be really careful not to pass judgment on the performance. These are objective evaluations of what's happening. So we're not going to pass judgment that sales are down because staff lack confidence. All we can really confirm at this point in the process is that sales are down and it has an impact. Also, please be sure to use like comparisons. And what I mean by this is that you should have in your current and future state a comparison of the same metrics. So, for example, only 15% of work orders are processed on time, and in the future, 95% will be processed on time, is a great performance gap. Don't drift into something like, currently only 15% of work orders are processed on time, and in the future, sales will increase by 75%, because now you're comparing two different metrics from your current to your future state. So simply said, performance gap analysis is an objective calculation of the difference between the current and the future state of performance that does not imply cause or suggest a solution.